Hi, my name is Ivy Starnes, and I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas. Today we're talking about natural horsemanship, fear, respect, fighting with your horse, learned helplessness, just a few things that are on my mind. Want to say right away, this is my opinion. There are people that love some of the well-known natural horsemanship trainers out there, and that's fine. But there are things that I don't like about what we normally think of as natural horsemanship. And I want to address my feelings on those things. If you disagree, you're welcome to comment, ask questions, as long as it's respectful. It's totally fine, because we know that there are many different ways to work with horses, and we are all on a path in terms of how we're being gentle or what you can do, and it's okay to be different. It really is. When I started with horses, I was saying things about gaited horses that nobody agreed with, or no one that I knew agreed with. And so on my path, on my journey, it was all about standing my ground, saying that you could or couldn't do something with gaited horses and that I believed it. And so it's not a matter of me like being closed-minded, but I was firm in what I believed, and I think what I believed was actually helping horses. So I believed things like you can use a snaffle or a bitless bridle to get gait. You don't need a bit or a big bit. And people were telling me the opposite, and I believe that through using head down, I've made a difference for horses. But I wanna be open to exploring ideas that are good for the rider and the horse. So that's kind of the rubric that I use. And holy mackerel, all these notifications are going off. These are like the rubric that I use is it good for the rider? Is it good for the horse? And that's going to kind of segue. So I'm using these big words like rubric, which is basically your standard or what we're measuring against. And segue is like leading into. There you go. Big words for the day. Whatever. Okay, so I have some notes, but they're not that organized. If I can find the right tab. I'm one of those people that has 30 tabs open in Chrome, so if that drives you crazy, don't look at my computer. This came up because I shared a post yesterday talking about how Monty Roberts, who is commonly one of the first, not the first, but one of the first people that mainstreamed natural horsemanship, and what he did called Join Up. And I don't necessarily agree with everything in the article, but I believe that a lot of what we see in terms of round pen work by natural horsemanship trainers is actually fear and flight based, not actual connection. And it's okay if you disagree with this. I do not think round pens are wicked. I don't think that. I don't think they're evil. I don't think using pressure is wicked with horses, but I'm going to give you some of my thoughts about what may or may not be good. So the idea with Join Up, and there's a really cool thing, I should find the article and share it. Monty Roberts promoted what he called Join Up. And whether or not it was true or he was honest, doesn't matter. But let me tell you, Join Up tended to come from putting a horse in the round pen. And if the horse didn't look at you and pay attention or come up to you, you moved it around. Okay. Sometimes chase, you can use, I don't want to use just negative terms because I can make it sound bad, but you move the horse around until he gave you 2 eyes, and then you would stop and give him relief. Now, there are horses that are more and less scared of people. There are horses that being inside a round pen with a person is wonderful. They'll come up to you, it's no big deal, they're clearly not afraid. And then there are horses that are afraid that being in a round pen is too close. They're already afraid. So it doesn't matter whether you're using a whip or a rope to chase them around, they're already scared. And so they're already scared of the person, and then you chase them, move them around until they stand still and look at you, and then you move away or give them some kind of relief. And then eventually they walk up to you. Now the problem with this can come from if you put the horse in a state of stress and then he only gets less stressed when he's by you, you basically taught him that you're going to use fear, you're going to move him around until he comes to you. And so what people commented in the article is a lot of times what happens is we then move the horse so that he's more scared of us than he's more willing to be with us because it's more scary when he's away, which means eventually he's going to be scared of something and leave us. I probably should actually read you the quote from the couple quotes that I liked from the article. Again, you don't have to agree with it. I'm not saying that everything that they said was right. We're just talking about it, having a discussion, That's what we're supposed to be able to do as adults. So don't worry if you don't agree. It's not a big deal. Let me find a couple quotes from this article that I liked. All right. One of the quotes was, "Our results indicate that because these methods rely on fear and safety, the horse is forced to choose between being repeatedly frightened, moved away, scared, depends on the techniques, or remaining with the trainer. We question whether it is humane to rely on fear and its determination to train horses." So you don't have to agree, just reading the quotes. Another quote, "Although it is appealing to think that horses in the round pen choose to follow their trainers because they're responding to us as though we are a horse, we believe that the use of fear has no place in genuinely humane and ethical horse training." And it comes back to something that's called least aversive. What is it? It's least aversive and least something. Well, if anybody knows what it is, you can go ahead and comment. See, the thing is, I need to do more. There you go. Least intrusive, minimally aversive. Lima is least intrusive, minimally aversive. And that's kind of the idea for some people that are moving in that direction, is what is least fearful to the horse. And that's going to be different for every horse. So again, this is not you should have to do this. I did a video not recently, it was like 2 years ago, about natural horsemanship and the problems I had with it, which is why I'm redoing this one, because that was 2 years ago. And one of the things that I talked about was, if you do natural horsemanship, where you use a rope, or you use a stick, or a flag, or a round pen, those tools, we all know the saying, if all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Right? So if you have a flag, or you have a whip, or you have a round pen, and you have a problem, generally your solution is going to be, oh, let's use this because this is the tool I have. And I want to teach the idea of diversifying your tools. Because horses are so unique, a tool is not going to work for every horse. And so the more you know, the better off you are. And so what I'm going to be advocating is learning body language and avoiding stress for the horse. And for the rider, or handler, avoiding stress. And so that's kind of my rubric, that's my standard, that's where I'm at, is how can we avoid much of the stress with our horses so that they can learn. And I'm going to do another video about how they learn without stress, but you can see some of that in the videos in the description. I shared a link to the videos about fear. Take a look at that. So, going on, respect. This is a word that is very common and possibly the most iconic word associated with natural horsemanship, aside from the natural and the horsemanship part. You'll hear things like, you have to get the horse to respect your space. They have to respect you. Along with this, the other word is leader or alpha. You have to be the leader to your horse. And there was some discussion about whether fear is very natural to horse behavior. So if you do watch horses in the wild, they spend a lot of time eating and sleeping and looking for resources. I have seen them. Most of the fear or aggression that I saw was about resources, say over water, or stallions over herds, which is also resource guarding. And horses are hardwired to find resources, such as food, companionship, stallions looking for mares, and to breed. But most of the time, they spend time together in non-aggressive ways. They eat next to each other or in proximity. So mutual grooming, eating, and sleeping are most of what take up horses' time. I was in Oregon watching bands of wild horses, and they were eating and moving. They would eat and take a few steps, and eat and take a few steps. And they're strung out over several hundred feet, and they do this. And you realize that for horses to survive, they need to eat like 18 to 19 hours a day. So that's not 18 to 19 hours fighting. And we change things when we enclose horses in an area and don't allow them to decide their friends or their band. When we domesticate horses and we have one hay feeder, or they're worried about their food, it changes and it's not as natural as in the wild. Now, it's not bad. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's different. So, Aggression from humans is not a human mimicking horse behavior. Now, that's not to say that horses are never aggressive or never move another horse around, but their primary means of relating is eating. They eat together, they sleep together, they live together. We humans don't do that. So please kind of stop thinking about yourself as another horse, because you're not. And you also add in the fact that many times you want to ride. And as a rider, that's something that horses never, 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 never do with another horse. And as a human, we have to care about our safety when we ride. And that's something that horses don't have to think about with another horse, because they're not riding and we're fragile. So be aware of how you think about it. So I really don't like the term respect when it comes to horses. I don't like the term leader. Basically because of the connotations that you have to make the horse do something. Now, safety is important, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But there are ways to work with horses where you stay safe, but you never get to the point where you'd have to be the leader because you'd have to force them to do something. That's the goal. Does it happen where sometimes something's going on and you're like, I just need you to do this? Yeah, it happens. It's not the end of the world. But if that's the basis of your training, is going out there and making the horse do stuff all the time, that's not a relationship. That's not how horses relate to each other. And that's not how I want to relate with my horses. So let's talk about that. How do we want to have a relationship with our horses? If we go back to when we daydreamed about horses, we dreamed about this close relationship where we were in tune with each other, and that is a good thing. And somehow we ended up thinking that to have that relationship, we had to be the boss. Now, in your daydreams about horses, or when you think about riding on the beach, do you automatically think about yourself as the boss? No. Well, not usually. I usually think about it as my horse wants to be with me. Not because I'm bossy, which ask my brothers how that went. Did they want to be with me because I was bossy? No, they didn't. They didn't. No one does. If you're bossy, they don't want to be with you. What they want to be is with someone that you could say mutual respect, but that goes both ways. That means you treat the horse like you want to be treated. You want that horse to hit you? Are you going to hit him with that stick? That rope? Be thoughtful. Again, not picking on how anybody trains, but be thoughtful. How do you want the relationship with the horse to look? Do you want it to be peaceful and calm? Then start out being peaceful and calm. All right, another thing is, how do you stay safe? There are ways to train and stay safe, but most of those involve keeping the horse what's called under threshold. I have whole videos about it in the link. You can see all the videos about fear. Keeping the horse under threshold, or at a place where the stress level is manageable for the horse. And sometimes that means teeny tiny baby steps. If you keep the horse under threshold, then you're going to avoid fights with your horse. I say avoid because some will maybe be inevitable, but the goal is to avoid them, not put your horse in a position where both of you feel like you have to fight each other. And I see that so much, where people have put the horse in a situation where now they have to fight. Where if you could do things to help de-escalate that, you'd be even better and you wouldn't have to fight. Build trust. Build trust. Show the horse that you're listening. One of the ways you can do that is studying Cat H, which I will be doing more videos on because I've been doing more research on that. The round pen is not wicked and it's not evil. It is a tool. And how you use that tool is completely up to you. One thing I will say about natural horsemanship and big name trainers and the round pen, many of us are used to seeing some big name trainers use ropes or sticks or round pens in a very dramatic way, and it gets horses to move their feet quickly and big and fast and flashy, and I'm going to say it's all entertainment. It's not real training. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make your horse's feet move, but if your goal is to do it because those other trainers did it when they were showing off, be aware that's not horse training. Horse training is when the horse understands it and you can do almost nothing. If you're doing big and flashy and asking for a lot of steps, all you're doing is mimicking the flashiness and maybe not even actually training. And that goes for a lot of big name trainers that I don't like. They tend to do that. And if it's big and flashy, I want to tell you it's entertainment and not actual training. Using natural horsemanship tends to give you steps that you can follow, sort of a regimen. that is organized, and a lot of people who like organized stuff tend to gravitate to that. But what I feel is left out in many natural horsemanship training methods is this idea of watching your horse, studying the horse. Do you know the slightest signs of stress in your horse? Do you know when the training is going too far, or when you need to stop or back up a bunch of steps because the horse doesn't understand? Horses learn when they get a chance to stop and think, not while they're moving their feet. So I advocate, no matter what system you use, study the horse. Study your horse's body language. You are going to know your horse the best, not the trainer you're watching you work with another horse. Be soft. Be soft. Be soft. Start out with softness. I don't use phases. I don't go through phase 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there are times when you need your horse to stop and you pull as hard as you need to, and that's fine. That's totally okay. I do that. But if your training is not focused on you being soft from step 1, step 2, step 3, all those being soft, you're not training your horse to be soft. I'm going to go ahead and look through some of these comments. Pamela says, agreed, on least amount of fear put into the horse is better. I've had way more success in teaching my horse through trust and reward, not fear. Pat Noon says, I defended Monty's techniques, but I've grown to prefer the training of Warwick Schiller. Warwick Schiller does a lot of really good work. Be aware he does still use pressure, but he's very tactful about it. And I'm going to do a talk about the clinic that I went to with Warwick Schiller. Pat Noon says, I don't like when flooding is used as a training technique. Yes, I didn't bring up flooding or learned helplessness. I talk about that a lot in the fear videos, but flooding and learned helplessness are things that some big trainers use. And again, it's flashy and showy and ends up with a horse that can be shut down and ready to explode. Lonnie says, horses in flight response make it difficult to respect horse. Horses' flight response make it difficult to respect horse. Lonnie, so I think you're saying that it can be hard to respect a horse because they can move suddenly to save themselves. Well, that's somewhat true, but you're willing to get on that horse. And if your goal is just to dominate and make the horse do it, that's okay. I might not be the trainer for you, and that's all right, because I'm not going to teach that. We can have mutual respect with horses. It doesn't mean that we don't do whatever we can to stay safe, because I want the rider to stay safe, but it means we start from a place of looking for peace, looking for that gentleness that doesn't come from big and flashy. I'm going to say that's really true. Natural horsemanship did a world of good. That's not a good way to say it. It did a lot of good in a world where horses were just tools and commodities. And as our equestrian life changed from one of using horses as tools to using them as friends, as pets, and as sort of a hobby, a partner where we trail ride or do competitive things with our horse, but it was no longer a way of living, in the sense of we didn't need them to, herd cattle and take us from one town to the next. Our relationship with the horse shifted. Horses went from living 10 to 12 years to now living 30. And we can spend that time with them and have an amazing time. And natural horsemanship helped shifted a mindset away from the cowboy style of training to a more gentler technique. But the thing is, don't stay there. We can be even gentler, as we've done studies that understand horses. Regina says, what year was your clinic with Warwick Schiller? Because he vastly changed his training philosophy in recent years. No, I went to his clinic a month and a half ago. So I just went. And I have some thoughts on it. Some good and some that I would improve on. And they're just my opinion. I think he's a good trainer. If you guys aren't paying attention that I share his stuff, that's not my fault. Because so many people are like, watch Warwick Schiller. And I'm like, this is a little bit of a rant. Not on Warwick Schiller, but you guys, I've been saying the same stuff that he says. So I didn't find it very different from the things I said. He's a bigger name because he doesn't just do gated. Raymond says, I think that philosophy was mostly for the beginning stage of starting a horse. I think the thing is, I don't think you need to do that stuff when you start a horse. If you're big and flashy when you start a young horse, you're making them fearful in a way that you don't need to. So, let's see, go back, sorry. Let's see, Sharon says, I seek respect, trust, softness, partnership. Yep. I don't like the respect word, but that's okay. I like all the rest of it. Trust, softness, partnership. Deb says, I train dogs and a lot of it is the same. Setting up to succeed and other cognitive behavior theories show us how to work with an animal so they want to learn, not just so they do what they're told and shut down. Yes, Deb, absolutely agree. Great way to say it. And that's true with any species we work with. Chrissy says, respect is a term used in horse and human relationship that is misused and misunderstood. Yep, and I have a whole video on respect. So I'm not going to try to get hung up on that word. But understand, my goal more and more has been to do things with horses so they understand them quickly and there is zero fight for the horse or the rider. And generally, I'm fairly successful at clinics. Now, that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, and it doesn't mean that there isn't a time when you use more force, but the goal is, are you starting off soft? Are you noticing your horse's stress level? And if you're going and using natural horsemanship, and like so many people tell me they still do join up, and one thing I forgot to mention about join up and Monty Roberts is there was a study, and it's not an official accredited study, but they put horses in round pens and used remote control cars and got the horse to join up with the remote control car in the round pen. Because it wasn't about humans or the human's body language. It was about horses being chased until they finally said, okay, fine, I'm not going to run. And then they learned that not by running they could go with it, but it was a fear-based. They were like, well, that thing's more scarier when I run away from it, so I'm going to come up to it and deal with the fear. So it wasn't about people, and it wasn't about people's body language. But again, it's okay if we disagree on this topic. The reason I made this video was to try to clarify and state some of my views. Diane says, how do you rebuild a relationship with a horse if training was previously heavy-handed? Asking for a friend. No, it's a great question, and I'm going to try to do a video. Actually, let me read you. So I'm writing a book, and one of the sections is building that relationship with the horse, even though it's not about gated training. Let's see if I can find and see if there's anything that I can read you. Building connection. I have different thoughts on this, so this is just going to kind of be an overview because I'm going to flesh this out in my book. So the idea with building a relationship is you learn to trust your horse because you have a fairly good grasp of what they're going to do in situations. And the horse learns to know you're not going to push them too much. So for example, let's say that a horse is scared of something in front of it. Now, this is going to be different for every horse, but a lot of people will kind of push the horse to walk to it. They're not necessarily get upset, but if the horse continues to be scared, most of the time we keep asking him to go up to it. What I've been doing this year to show the horse that I see and recognize their fear. If they're afraid of something, we stop. We look at it to make sure the horse isn't going to run away, and then we turn and walk away from it. Okay? And the cue is walk, not run away from it. And then we get away where the horse is comfortable, which may be 20 feet, it may be 200, and then we walk toward it again, and in the slightest sign of any stress from the horse, we stop and look. And then we turn and walk away. And you repeat this, and I have videos on this on my private training group that I did with Gunner, and this is something similar to Cat H. By doing this, we show the horse that we see the stress, and we're not going to ask them for too much. And it turns into trust, because the horse that I did it with Gunner now will pretty much go past anything. Connection and relationship is something we all want with our horses, but how do we start to get it? Some horses just naturally want to follow you around, but what if your horse isn't like that? What if they are more aloof or frightened? This is something you may need to do with a new horse. And maybe you want more connection with the horse you have had, or you have. This is not edited. Either way, this info is valuable for staying safe because you learn to read your horse very well and prevent trigger stacking or going over threshold, and your horse learns to trust you. In the pasture, spend time with your horse. Have no agenda. Bring a book or magazine or be on your phone. Sit in the pen or pasture with your horse or just outside if you'll get mobbed by other horses. The goal isn't to have him come up, but to share his space as he lives his life. To be with the horse, to have no agenda, to feel the sun, to feel the breeze, to hear the birds, to be. You need to be whole without the horse. If you want to be someone the horse wants to be with. So the idea is your relationship can't be based on the horse loving you. You need to be okay with the horse you have. If your horse is dangerous, get professional help. And then I talk about in hand what to do. I have a whole, how to work through that. So Diane, I'm coming back to your question. It's a matter of now being soft, and there's a lot of videos about that, and I'm going to be doing more and more as I'm doing some studies, and I want to show you some of this. Cheryl says, a trainer, not mine, bopped my horse in the face because he was too close to her when she was trying to get in the gate. We were free playing, and she didn't even ask to enter or give me a minute to put his halter on. He kicked out in her direction as she walked by. I said, serves you right, don't hit my horse. Yeah, there's not very many times that I will hit a horse. We do tend to do it. I have done it. I often regret it. But I understand there are cases where it can happen. But it sounds like in that case, it was totally undeserved. So, Megan says, I have one of those horses that had some rough handling previously, have done exactly what you're suggesting. That's awesome. Sharon says, communicate is a better word for what I seek with a horse. Absolutely. The communication, which I'm going to tell you, humans need to learn to read horses. That is the communication. Communication is two ways. We want the horses to learn our cues, but we refuse, I say we as a general term, we often refuse to recognize when the horse is communicating to us. And they're communicating to us all the time, and humans tend to ignore those stress signals, and then they get hurt, and then I get mad and be like, well, weren't you paying attention? So, Regina says people confuse trust with respect. And I think actually, Sharon, I like the idea of communicate, because we can communicate to the horse that we trust it, and the way they communicate to us is through their body language, and it's our job to learn it. So I totally agree with that, and I don't know where I was going with my rambling. But, so this is a long video, a lot longer than I intended it, so I'm very sorry about that. I was trying to keep it shorter. I'm going to read you some of the topics that I have coming up. So we're going to be, in no particular order, we're going to be talking about canter leads, bend and softness, relationship to contact, or this is a phrase that someone else uses, what does your horse do when they feel contact, vertical versus lateral flexion, winter riding, staying warm, footing, bitless bridles, this one I'm going to be excited about, why I don't watch the show Heartland. And then I'm going to talk about a bad day that I had recently, and I say bad because of what I did. And then how to build endurance in your gaited horses, and that it probably takes longer than you think. So those are some topics coming up, hoping to do that. And thank you guys so much for joining. Stay tuned. I'm going to end this live video, and then I'm going to do a video and hopefully review the Warwick Schiller Clinic that I went to a couple months ago. So thank you guys so much for watching and joining in the live videos. Everybody that joined the private training group, thank you so much. When I get to the winter, it's a very slow month for me income-wise. So everybody that joined is a huge blessing to me. And I just want to say thank you guys so much. Everybody on the private training group. It's a lot of fun. We're going to keep doing stuff through the winter for anybody that's willing to go outside and brave the cold. And I can't wait to see what everybody does. You got this.